Hello everyone, my name is Anjali Bansal and I am a trainer at Code Ghante. Code Ghante is an initiative in India to provide foundational coding courses and provide a free to learn to code platform where anyone who is interested to learn can practice coding. So let's get started. In today's video, we shall learn the basics of Java programming. Now, before we learn how to do Java programming, let's learn why to learn Java. Java is a coding language, an object-oriented programming language that is used to make softwares for Android devices like mobiles. It is used to make computer notebooks, gaming consoles, service like servers, etc. Java has a very flexible and easy to use graphic user interface. That is why it is used to build softwares for research, banking, servers, gaming, etc. One very popular game that has been built in Java, which you all must have heard, is Minecraft. And I'm sure you must have played it as well. So let's get started. So now we know why we are learning Java. Fundamentals. So in Java, we shall try writing a simple code first of all. That is to declare a class and print hello world. Now for writing a code, we need a platform which can understand the syntax the way we write. It can interpret its meaning and give us the desired output. One such software is provided by Code Ghante. You just need to log into the website znyr.io. Okay. Just log in to the website with your Google account. Yeah. So now we are in. Now in this black ribbon, you will see a Learn to Code block. Click on it and select the Code Playground option. Over here on the left hand side, select the Code Playground 2 and the Java language is what we want to learn, so we choose the language as Java. Now see, this black part of the screen is where we write the commands on the code. And the right side part, which is white, is where we get our output. Now, in the Java programming language, we write all our code inside a class. Now, what is a class? A class is basically a encapsulated part of the code where we can write. We shall, in any program, first line should be of the class and the name of the class. Here the name of the class is run. The second line shall always be public static void main string square brackets args, and this whole is inside curly brackets. Now we again start our curly brackets. Now we need to output hello world. So we tell our system out means output or print. Now inside these circular brackets, we start our double quotes and write as it is we want that as an output. Hello world. In coding, especially in Java programming language, we must put a semicolon after each line of code, except the first two lines, that is the class run and the public static void main. So we have put the semicolon. Now let's try to run the code by clicking the run button. See, we got the output as hello world, the same as what we had written in the double brackets. So this is how we declare a class and print a simple statement. Variables. Now what are variables? Variables are memory locations which can change their value. These are named memory locations. Now, for example, we need to add two numbers and we need to write a code for it. So we will have two numbers, number 1 and number 2, who we shall add and store it in another number, which is the sum of the two numbers. Now, number 1 and number 2 must have some value. Inside the computer memory, for example, just a second. For example, this is your computer memory. Now, inside this memory, we need to store two numbers whom we shall add, and the third number, which will be the sum of the two numbers. Now, we need to name these locations. So how do we name them? For example, let's name this X, this as Y, and this as the sum. Okay. So now let's store a value 3 in X, 2 in Y, and then what will be the value in sum? Obviously, it will be 3 plus 2, 5. Yes, you all are very intelligent. Okay. So similarly, now X, Y, and sum are our variables. Now variables can be of many types. Variables depend on what value they store. For example, these X, Y, and sum variables are storing integer values. Okay. Now there can be variables which store in them a letter. For example, they store in them A. So what will be the data type of such a variable? It will be a character variable. X, Y, and sum are our integer variables. Okay, so these are integer variables. This is a character variable. Because it is storing a character inside it. Now, there can be variables which store decimals inside them. For example, a number 1.2. Okay, this is a point. So now it is neither an integer nor a character. This is our third type of data type, which is float data type. Okay. Now, so till now, how many data types have we learned? Let's revise. Integer data type, character data type, float data type. Now what is float? Stores decimals. Stores letters. Stores integers. Now what other types of data types do we have in Java? Anyone? Any guesses? There is a data type which stores a word inside it or a sentence inside it. This type of data type is known as a string. String data type stores words or sentences. Okay, so these are the 4 data types that we shall cover. Now, there is one more data type which is a little bit different from all of these. This is the Boolean data type. It has only 2 values, either true or false. Now, let's take, for example, a statement. You are 10 years old. Now, either this statement is true that you are 10 years old, or either it is false. So this is used basically in situations where only 2 answers are possible. So variables, as we have studied, are memory locations for storing data values. Now, how are variables stored? Let's see with the help of an example. First of all, we need to declare variables. Declare means we need to tell our computer that we will be taking these 3 spaces in your memory. Please provide us with these spaces. And we also need to tell what type of value we will be storing inside them, so that the appropriate amount of memory can be provided by the computer to us to store our values. We need to add 2 numbers. So just as we read a few moments ago, we need 3 variables. 2, the numbers that we must add, and third, the number in which we store our answer. So integer type, the word for integer that we use in Java is int. Int x, comma y, comma sum. And we put a semicolon at last. So we have declared 3 values, x, y, and sum. Now, we put the value of x equals to 2, semicolon. Y equals to 3, semicolon. Now, what is the value of sum? Sum would be x plus y, right? Because we need to add the 2 numbers. Semicolon. So let's print our sum. How do we print sum? Yeah, you guessed that right. System dot out dot println, and we write inside sum. Okay. Now let's run this program. See, we got the output as 5, which is 3 plus 2 is x plus y gets stored in sum, and we print out sum. So we get the output as 5. Things might be a little confusing in the beginning, but it will start falling into place after a few moments. So don't worry, okay? Don't worry at all. Now, how to take input from the user. So just now, we added two numbers, 3 and 2. Now, what if we want the user to input numbers from her choice? For example, I say I want to add 3 plus 2, but you say that you want to add some other numbers. So it must be the choice of the user which numbers to add, right? Correct. So we must take the input from the user, ask the user that can you please tell us which numbers you want to add. Yes, we can do this by programming. How? Let's see. Now, we just read that Java has a very nice graphic user interface. What this means is, it understands the needs of the programmer very well. And hence, there are some built-in functions which we can use and some built-in libraries. Now, to use that built-in libraries, we must ask the software to inherit those libraries or borrow those libraries from Java. How we can do so is import. Import means to get, as in what we get, import material from outside our country to inside our country, just like that. Import java.util.scanner, semicolon. Now just take care, J and U must be in small letters and the capital S of scanner. Okay. Now scanner is, we need to create an object of the class scanner, which is done by scanner. Name of the object, let's say input, is equal to new scanner system dot in, semicolon. Now we tell our user by printing it on the output screen, system.out.println, that please enter the first number to be added. Now remember, we must put this inside the semicolons or double quotes. Okay. Now we need an integer variable. We already have x with us. X we will write as x is equal to input, that is the object of the scanner, input dot next int. Now why have we written this next int? Because the next value that we need to take as input is an integer value. So next int. X will have an integer value inside it. Now we again tell the user by printing it on the system, that system.out.println, circular braces, double quotes, please enter the second number to be added. Okay, semicolon. Don't forget to close the double quotes and the circular braces. Okay, now we again have already defined y. We take the input. How do we do that? Input dot next int. Take care that the n is small and the I is capital in next int. Now we have the sum as x plus y and we print out the sum. Let's try to run the program. Oh, we forgot to put the semicolon. See? Now this is how we get an error. Error means that the output screen tells us that there is some mistake in your code. The syntax is not correct. Now what is the syntax? Syntax is the particular way of writing the code. The way that the computer understands. So now that we have put the semicolon, let's run it again. It might take some moments, don't worry. Okay, so let's see what would be the output for the following code. See, this is the output. Just forget the part written above the hello world. The output is hello world. Then it asks us to enter a number. Please enter the first number to be added. We entered 3. Then it asks us to enter the second number to be added. We enter 2 and it prints 3 plus 2, which is equal to 5. So it prints 5. Okay, so system prints the sum, which is 5. So let's revise what we have done till now. We started with why to use Java, and then we moved on to the fundamentals of Java. The fundamental of Java is to declare a class and print a simple statement, hello world. We must always start our program by declaring a class. Inside that we write public static void main, and after public static void main we write our output statement. Just like here, public static void main string square brackets args, and there is no semicolon after this line. Then we write out system, that is we are telling the system that please print out hello world, and hello world must always be written in double quotes and there must be a semicolon at the end of every line. Now moving on to the next topic. Our next topic is variables. Variables are named memory locations where we can store data. The data can be of various types. What data types did we study? Int data type for integers, float data type for decimal type numbers, string data type for words or sentences, char data type for storing characters or alphabets, and Boolean data type that has two values, true or false. These were the 5 types of data types that we studied. Then their value can be changed throughout the program. This is what is special about variables. Now we just studied that how can we take an input from the user. we can take the input from the user with the help of an already inbuilt defined library named scanner. Okay, scanner library. This is the scanner library that we just saw, scanner. And we declare its object. How do we do that? By writing the name of the class, scanner, name of the object, input, is equal to new. That is, we are declaring a new object. And again the name of the library, scanner. And inside curly braces, we write system.in. That is, we are using this library of the system to take an input. Okay. So, moving on. Our next topic would be conditional statements. Now, what are conditional statements? Suppose we want to execute a block of code only if a condition comes out to be true. That is, we execute a block of code based on some condition. What execute? Now, for example, we want to know whether a number is even or odd. How can we determine that? We all know that even numbers are divisible by 2. And when divided by 2, their remainder is 0. Correct? This is the concept that we shall use in determining whether a number is even or odd. For example, we want to determine that a number 5. So, first of all, what do? We need to store that 5 in a variable. Now we need to declare that variable. What data type should that variable have? We know that we want to store 5 in that variable, and 5 is an integer. So the data type of the variable must be integer. And what is the word for integer data type in Java? It's int. So we declare int x. That is our name of the variable, and semicolon. Now we put x equals to 5, semicolon. Okay, now we have entered data into that variable. Now the variable has some value. Now let's see. We all know that this is the plus operator. This is the minus operator. Now this is the divide operator. Now in coding languages, their x or cross sign is not used for multiplication. The star sign above the number 8 on the keyboard is used for multiplication. And what we have a special sign that returns us the remainder when divided by. For example, we want to know what is the remainder when 7 is divided by 3. Now we are all very intelligent. We already know that the remainder must be 1 and the quotient must be 2 when 7 is divided by 3. But the computer doesn't know that. We must ask the computer to compute what must be the remainder. So, we tell the computer that 7 modulo, 7 modulo 3. Okay. Now, do you see this percentage sign? This percentage sign is called modulo. Modulo is the sign that returns us the remainder on dividing one number by the other. Okay, so we read it as modulo. Now, if a number divided by 2 gives us a remainder of 0, then this means that the number is even. And if the number divided by 2 gives us a remainder of 1, we know that the number is odd. Correct? This is what the definition of even numbers is after all. So we write that if, okay, if x, now what is the value of x that we have stored? 5. X modulo 2 equals to 0. Now, we must be very careful by using the equal to operator in coding languages. 1 equal to means, now let me just open Paint. Yes. Now, 1 equal to signs in coding language means we are assigning a value to variable. For example, we just saw x is equal to 5. Now, if we want to compare two values, that is, if we want to compare 5 is equal to 10 by 2, right? So what are we doing here? Is this the same as the first one? No. See here, we have used two equal to signs. This is because here, when we have used one sign, we have assigned a value to x. And here we are comparing two already present values. Now you see the difference? The difference is in their usage. The situation where we use this. We use this when we want to compare two things. And we use this when we want to assign a value. Okay. This is to assign a value that is single equal to, and this is to compare two things when we use double equals to. So coming back to our code, we just compared that if x divided by 2 gives us a remainder which is equal to 0, then we tell the system to print out system.out.println curly braces, double quotes. We want to write on the output screen that the number is. Now what does it mean if it gives us a remainder of 0? Is it odd or is it even? Of course, we all know that it's an even number. Okay, so we write that number is even. And we close the double quotes, close the circular brackets, and then put a semicolon. Now you see these curly brackets that came after the if statement. Now this is our if statement. This is the if statement. Now these curly braces, now inside these curly braces, whatever we write will be executed only if the condition in the if statement comes out to be true. Okay. Now if this comes out to be true, it will print this line. Else, it will print out system.out.println circular brackets, double quotes, the number is what? Now, if the remainder is not 0 when divided by 2, then what else will it be? Of course, there are only two possibilities. When a number is divided by 0, the remainder can be either 0 or 1. Now, if it's not 0, then it's obviously 1. So, if it evaluates to false, it skips this block of code. That is, it does not print this printout statement that the number is even. And it goes into the block of the else word and it prints that the number is odd because the remainder came out to be 1. Okay. Now let's see if this code works. The number is odd. Correct. We got our output. Is 5 odd or even? We all know that, kids. You're all very intelligent. The number is, of course, an odd number. So you see how conditional statements work? Conditional statements are those statements which are a condition to execute a block of code. That is, as we just saw, that we want to print a particular statement only if it is true. If it is not true, we do not print out. Now there are two types of if statements. Either we can use only if, or if else. Okay. Okay, let me just erase this. Yes. So, first one is only if, second one is if else, and the third one is if else if else. So, we use only if when we need to check only once. For example, we need to check whether a number is greater than 0 or less than 0. So it can be only two ways, either it is greater than 0 or it is less than 0. So we check only once that if a number is greater than 0, then it must print out that the number is greater than 0, else it will print out that the number is less than 0. Now, there is also a third possibility if you think a little bit in depth. What is the third possibility? If you guessed it right, then you must be very intelligent. Yes, the third possibility is that the number is 0 itself. Now, we can't categorize 0 as greater than 0, nor we can say that it is less than 0. So what do we do in such cases? We use our third option, if, else if, else. That is, if a number is greater than 0, print out that the number is greater than 0. If a number is less than 0, print out that the number is less than 0. Or else, print out that the number is equal to 0. Let's see how we do it. Let's assume that we want to check for 5 only. Okay, so we print this block of, erase it. Now, let's check. If x is greater than 0, then system.out.println the number is greater than 0. Full stop. Close the brackets, close the quotes, and put a semicolon. Now, we must put this curly braces to tell the computer that if this condition evaluates to true, then only this much block should be printed. Okay. And if it evaluates to false, what will happen if it evaluates to false? We have only seen cases where the condition evaluates to true and it prints out whatever is inside the block. But what if it doesn't come out to be true? What if this number is not 5, but it's -4? So it will, in that case, just simply skip this block of code. It will not execute it. Understand? You will have a much clearer understanding once we execute this program. Now, we are using our third type, that is if, else if. That is, we put two conditions. If a number is greater than 0. Now we have another case, if a number is less than 0. Else, if x is less than 0. System.out.println double quotes, the number is 0. Semicolon. Now, what is the third case scenario? The third case scenario is, of course, as we just discussed, that the number is 0 itself. So let's put the else case. Else, in every other case, print out system.out.println the number is 0. Semicolon. Okay. So here we have made 3 cases. You just saw what I meant? Let's try to run this code for the value x is equal to -4. It's printing out the number is 0. Now this is a wrong output. I don't get it. Why is it showing a wrong output? Did any one of you guys get it? Yeah, I'm not able to understand it. Oh God. You got it? Yeah, you guys are so intelligent. Oh, even I got it. Yeah, see. We have written over here, in the case for x is less than 0, that the number is 0. So it is printing out that the number is 0. Now let's change this line. The correct line would be that the number is less than 0. Correct. Now let's see what output does it show after this. Run. The number is less than 0. Okay, so the output has changed. Now you see what is the importance of writing in double quotes and how the number in the double quotes gets displayed on the output screen, and how we use the if else statement. Okay, so this was the conditional statements that work based on some condition. They execute that block of code if the condition evaluates to true, and they do not execute the block of code if the condition evaluates to false. Now let's see what happens in this code of x less than 0, greater than 0, positive or negative. We declared a variable x. We stored a value of -4 in the x variable. Now we wrote a if statement. Now if, else, class, import, public static void, all int, all these words coming in the red color are reserved. What does the word reserved mean over here? Reserved in coding languages means that these words convey some special meaning to the software. Now these words have special place in the memory. The computer understands from these words that, for example, let's say the word if has been written. So from this, the computer understands that I need to check the condition inside the curly braces. Now, in the if statement, the value of x was -4. Now, -4 is not greater than 0. So, the condition inside if evaluates to false. And because it evaluates to false, it does not enter this block of code, and therefore the number is greater than 0 does not get printed on the output screen. Now, moving to the next condition, else if, it checks that whether a number is less than 0. Now, -4 is less than 0. So, it evaluates to true. Sorry. And hence, it comes inside the block of code. Over here, it encounters the print statement saying that system print out that the number is less than 0. So, it prints out that the number is less than 0. Coming to the else. Now, when is else executed? Else is executed when none of the if statement evaluates to true. Else is executed, for example, let's say we change the value of x to 0. So, now let's see the output. The number is 0 because we have assigned x the value of 0. In the if statement also it evaluates to false. The else if statement also evaluates to false. So, the else block gets executed. The else block is executed when none of the if statements evaluates to true, or the input doesn't match the if, then in every other case else get executed. Okay. So this was our if else statement. You see how by changing the value of input we get different outputs. Now we have checked for the x is less than 0 case. We have checked for the number is 0 case. Now let's check what happens when the number is a positive number. That x is greater than 0. For example, the value of x is 8. The number is greater than 0. See, the output has changed. So this was what if else statements are. These are known as conditional statements. These conditional statements are present in each language. Coming on to our next topic, switch statement. Now, what is a switch statement? What do we mean by the word switch? Anyone? Any guesses? Come on. Yeah. So, switch statement means when we switch between choices. When we change between choices. What does this mean? Now, what is a switch? Switch is the switch that we use to turn on our fan or our tube light. It is either switched on or is it off, right? It is used to change between on and off, correct? Similarly, the switch statement in programming languages is used to choose from a list of options or a list of choices from a menu of choices. Now, for example, we want that we have a calculator. Now, we want we have choices that we want to add two numbers, we want to subtract two numbers, we want to multiply two numbers, or we want to divide two numbers. Now, 1. Press 1 if you want to add two numbers. Press 2 if you want to subtract two numbers. Press 3 if you want to multiply, and press 4 if you want to divide. Correct? So we need to make a program for that. So we need to cover all scenarios. What if the user enters 1? What if the user enters 2? What if the user enters 3? What if the user enters 4? And what if a user enters a number which is greater than 4 or not in our range? All this is okay. So let's now learn the use of switch statement. Okay, so let me delete all of this. Just a second. Okay, and we must also delete this. We are not importing anything. We do not need our input function. Okay, so now, first of all, we give the user a menu of options. How do we do that? Obviously, we need to print it on the output screen. So we write system.out.println curly braces, double quotes, menu. Okay. Now, how do we get to a new line? \n. \n means a new line. That is, the cursor on the output screen will move on to the new line. You will just understand what I meant. First option is to add. Okay. Again, new line. Second option is to subtract. Third option is to multiply. Again, new line. Fourth option is to divide. Okay, semicolon. Now, the user would enter one of the numbers from 1 to 4 of his choice. So the input would be a number, that is an integer, and we need a variable to store that input. Now, what data type do we use to store integers? Of course, the int data type. So we declare a variable of the int data type, int input, okay, which is by default set to 0. So if a user enters a wrong input, or it does not enter any input, the value of its choice will be 0. Now see, how do we use the switch statement? Switch, SWITCH, and S is in small letters. And in circular brackets, we write what a variable do we need to switch. So switch must be int input, and for our let's put the value of input as 1. Now we need to switch between input. Correct? That what if the input is 1? What if the input is 2? What if the input is 3? What if the input is 4? We need to add if the input is 1, to subtract if the input is 2, to multiply if the input is 3, and to divide if the input is 4. So, case of input 1, that is case 1, semicolon. No, oh, sorry, not semicolon. These are colon. The two dots that you print out. And we write what we need to do. Now if the user wants to add two numbers, we say that please enter the two numbers that you want to add. Okay, now these again need to be stored in two variables. So we declared the two variables, int x, int y, what third variable do we need to use? Anyone, any guesses? We have done this program before to add two numbers and we required three input. What were those? The three inputs were the two numbers that we need to add, and third, the number in which we store the answer, that is the sum of the two numbers. So the answer. Okay. So case 1, we want the user to enter the first number. Now let's assume that the first number is 7. The second number y is equals to 3, and answer is, as in the first option we need to add, the answer will be x plus y, semicolon, and we print out system.out.println. The answer is, now what we need to print out the value that is stored in the variable answer. We don't need to print out what the word answer here. We need to print out the value that is stored in the variable answer. So what we do, we close the double quotes. We put a plus sign to indicate that it must print out the value stored in the variable, and then we write the name of the variable whose value is to be printed. So, whose value is to be printed here? The value that is stored in the variable answer. That is the addition or the sum of the two numbers. So, we write answer after the plus sign. And we close the circular bracket and put a semicolon. This was for case 1. Then we need to put a break statement. What does break mean? Break means that if case 1 meets our requirements, or if user enters the case 1, then you do this and exit from the code. Now what if the user enters case 2? Then in this case, we take the value of x equals to 7 again. We take the value of y to be 3 again. And okay, let's change the value of x and y this time. Let it be 10 and let this be 4. Okay, now you see x and y are variables. That is, the value stored in x and y can be changed. They can be varied throughout the program. Any number of times, as much times as you want them to. Now the answer is another variable whose value can be changed. So this time the answer would have a value which is equal to x minus y, because the user has entered the operation number 2, that is to subtract. Now we again want to print out the answer. So system.out.println. The answer is, now we want to print the value that has been stored in the variable answer in case number 2. So we put a plus sign, we write the name of the variable whose value is to be printed, that is answer, close the circular brackets and put a semicolon. And what do? We write the break statement to exit from the loop. Now case number 3. This time, what value do you want? Do you want 5? X is equal to 5. Y should have a value of how much? What do you want? put in y. Let's put y is equal to 5 as well. Again, we have changed the value of x and y. Now, what is the value of answer this time? Answer is the multiplication of the two numbers. That is, third case is for multiplication, you see. So, answer would be x into y. And what operator do we use in coding languages to multiply? The star operator. That is above the number 8 in the keyboard. Again, we print out system.out.println. The answer is plus answer, close semicolon, and the break statement. Don't forget to put the break statement. It's very important. For now, you may not understand its value, but you will after some time. Case number 4, that is, what if the user enters the option 4, that is to divide. This time, let's take the value of x equals to 100 and y equals to 20. Okay. Now, answer is equal to x divide y. Sorry. And again, we print out the answer system.out.println. The answer is, after the double quotes have been closed, +9, the variable whose value is to be printed, that is answer. Close the circular brackets and put a semicolon. What statement must come here? The break statement. Now, break is again a reserved keyword. You see, it's coming in red. Case is also a switch reserved keyword. I'm so sorry. And switch is also a reserved keyword. Now, what if the user enters a value that is not from 1, 2, 3 or 4? So, we need to make a default case. That is, we tell this user by printing it out that you must please enter a valid option, or the option entered is invalid. Okay. And again, break statement. We must put a break statement while using switch case, okay? Don't forget that. And just take care that we don't put a semicolon after the switch statement. Where the switch statement, by switch statement I mean the line where we have used the switch reserved word, okay? Okay, would you like to run this code? You'll understand it that way much better. And for now, first is we have entered the first option. Okay, there is an error in our code. Now, how do you read that error? Now, it shows that there is an error in line number 13. You see here, 13. What is the error? The system.out.println. Now, the symbol OU. This is not a valid symbol. What is the valid symbol? It must be out. Okay, now we shall run it again. See, we printed menu. Then we came to the next line. That is, the cursor was here. Then it moved to here. Let me explain it. How do I erase all this? Yes. See, I wrote menu. Then I put a black backslash in, and then I wrote 1 dot add. Okay. So now what if they would, and the output came like this. What was the output? Menu add. Okay. This was our output from this input. Now what if we write the input to be like this without backslash in? Menu 1 add. What would be the output? Any guesses? The output would be menu, and in the same line it would print 1 dot add. Okay, so you saw what is the change? How we came from here to here. You just saw? This is what backslash n is used for. If there is no backslash n, there is only 1 dot add after menu, then the line cursor. The line remains the same. Okay. So to add, then again a new line, that is we move from here to here. To subtract, again a new line. To multiply, again a new line. To divide. Now we took the input, the default input as 1. So we switched the input. Now we have taken the value of input as 1. So this means that it is case 1. Input is 1. So by default, the value of x is 7 and y is 3. Answer is x plus y, that is 7 plus 3. And then we print out that system.out.println, the answer is the value that has been stored in the variable answer, that is 7 plus 3, which is equal to 10. Thus it prints out that the answer is 10. Now why doesn't it show that the answer is 10 minus 4, 6, 5 into 5, 25 or 100 by 25? It is because of this break statement. This is what the break statement does. It exits from this block of code. Now, the point from where you start the braces to the point where you close that braces is one block of code. These braces, if a brace is opened, it must also be closed. See, 1, 2, 3 open braces. 1, 2, 3. 3 closing braces. If we do not close the braces or miss them by chance, we get an error message. So this is the use of the break statement, that it comes out of that block of code. That is, it moves the cursor to the next line after the closing brace. To the next line after the first closing brace. Okay. Now let us change the value of input to 2 and see what will be the output. What output do you expect? Do you expect that it will be written the answer is 10, then it will again write the answer is 10 minus 4, 6? Or do you think that it will write answer is 10 minus 4, 6, the answer is 5 into 5, 25? What? Let's see. Run the code. The answer is 6. Now, this systems.out.println statement is always printed because this is not inside the switch block. The switch block starts from the point where we open the braces after the switch statement, and the system.out.println line of the menu has been written outside that block. Okay, so the answer is 6 is what it prints. System.out.println, the answer is 6 because only case 2 gets executed because the input is 2. So it does not match with case 1, but it matches with case 2. Now let's make the value of input as 3. The answer is 25. That is, we took the value of x and y as 25, 5 and 5 in case 3, and the value of answer becomes 5 into 5, that is 25. Thus, it prints the answer is 25. Okay, it does not execute the first and the second case in here. Just be very careful. Run again. Sing. Now let's change the value of input. Let's change it to 4. Let's see. The answer is 5. Now, why does it show the answer is 5? It shows because the input is 2. We are switching the value inside the variable input. See, we have written switch input. That is, we are changing the value of input, and the cases are for the respective value of the input. Case 1 was not matched with the input. Case 2 was also not the value of input. 3 was also not the value of input. 4 is the value of input. So we execute what has been written inside case 4. X is equal to 100, y is equal to 20. Answer is x divided by y, that is 100 divided by 20, which gives us the value of answer as 5. Thus it prints the answer is 5. Now that we have covered all the possible values, let's see what if we write a value that is not from 1, 2, 3 or 4. For example, let's take the value of input to be 5. Please enter a valid option or the option entered is invalid. See, now the value of the variable input doesn't match with any of the cases. That is, neither it is 1, nor it is 2, nor 3, nor 4. So, it comes to the default case. That is, for any other value of input except these 4, it executes the default block. And what have we written in the default block? That please enter a valid option or the option entered is invalid. Okay. So this is how a switch statement works. What we need to take care in this switch statement is the variable whose value we need to switch, that we write in the circular braces outside the word switch. The cases that we make, the break statement, and the default case. These 4 things need to be kept in mind while using the switch statement. Okay. So, this was all about switch statements, that is, choosing from an option of choices. We just now saw how we can make a menu and how we can choose a value from that menu. Loops. Coming to the topic of loops. Now, what are loops? Where do we use the word loops in our real life? When you listen to songs and you play a song on loop, what does it do? It plays the same song again and again. Similarly, when we put a block of code inside a loop, it executes the same block of code again and again. Till when? Does it execute the block of code infinitely? No, no, no. It executes the block of code till a certain amount of time. Till a certain amount of times. The times are input by the user, are according to the needs of the program. So now that we have understood what loops are, let's see what are the various types of loops in Java. Just a minute. Yeah. So there are basically two types of loops in Java. First is the entry controlled loop, and second are the exit controlled loop. Now remember, when I was telling you about loops, I said that loops do not run the block of code infinitely. They run it till a certain condition is satisfied. Now, it is the condition. If it evaluates to true, then the loop is run again. If the condition evaluates to false, then the loop block is not run. So, if the condition is checked before running of the loop block, it is known as an entry controlled loop, and if the condition is checked after running the loop block, then it is known as an exit controlled loop. So there are two loops in entry controlled loop. The name of the loops are the for loop, and the while loop. And in exit control loops, there is a single loop, the do while loop. So, what are entry control loops in which condition is checked before running the block of code. And exit control loops are loops in which the condition is checked after running the block of code for the next iteration. Okay. Iteration means repetition. So let's see, how do we do this inside a program? So now let's say, for example, we want to print hello world, the same statement, but not once, but 10 times on our output screen. So instead of writing system.out.println curly braces, double quotes, hello world, and semicolon 10 times, we just put this single statement inside a loop, and then it gets executed 10 times by itself. Now, first of all, we learned how to do using a for loop. For is again a reserved keyword. We write for curly braces, then it is an variable that we use as a counter. And what is the condition that we need to check? That we need to write this 10 times. So I is now at the present moment equals to 1, semicolon. Till when do we need to run the loop? Till I is less than or equal to 10, semicolon. And what change do we need to bring in the variable I each time the loop is run? We need to increment the value of I by 1 each time. So this is how we write the for statement, and we put the code inside a block by putting inside the braces and then run this. Hello world. You see, we declared it. So what is the syntax for the for loop? We write the for keyword, then the initialization of the variable, then condition on variable, and then change in variable each time the loop is run. Okay, so let's run this. See, it prints hello world 10 times. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's 10 times that has been printed. Let's see how this worked. We declared a variable I that stores in it an integer value. So inside the for loop itself, we declared a variable I and initialized it to a default value of 1. Now the value of I is 1. The condition is checked that I, which is 1, is less than equal to 10. So the condition evaluates to true, and hence this gets printed. There was no use of I++ till now. Then hello world gets printed. Again we come outside of the loop. We go here, increment the value of I now. Now the value of I becomes 1 plus 1, which is equals to 2. Again the condition is checked that the value of I, which is 2, is less than equal to 10. This is true as 2 is less than 10. So it prints hello world again. Now again it comes to the top, increments the value of I by 1. Now the value of I becomes 3. It checks the condition that 3 is less than 10. It evaluates to true, and thus it prints hello world. So this is how it runs 10 times, and now when the value of I becomes 10, the condition is checked, I is equal to 10, it evaluates to true, and it prints hello world. Now again the incrementation takes place. The value of I becomes 11. The condition is checked, but now 11 is neither less nor equal to 10. So the condition evaluates to false, and thus we do not enter this block of code and we do not execute it the 11th time. Okay, so this is the syntax: for keyword, curly braces, initialization of the variable, semicolon, condition on variable, the condition that we need to check every time the loop is run, semicolon, and the change in variable every time the loop is run. Okay, so this was our for loop. Now let's see what is a while loop. Now we try to write the same block of code using a while loop. Let's see how we can do this. For our knowledge, let's write this was using system.out.println curly braces double quotes. This was using for loop. Now, and remember, while writing for loop, this statement, we do not need to put semicolons at the end. There should be no semicolon at the end of the for statement. Now, system.out.println, this is using while loop. Now, while loop is again an entry control loop. That is, the condition is checked before writing the code of block. So while, again a reserved keyword just like for. And now what we need to do is just need to write the condition that I must be less than or equal to 10. Let's make it 5. Okay. But this time our I is neither initialized and nor declared. So we need to declare the variable I, int I, and store inside it an integer value that is 1. Now I must be less than equal to 5. So how much time will the loop run? 5 times, if you get what I mean. System.out.println hello everyone. Let's change the statement a little now. Forward of the same statement. Okay, so now that we have written, now we declare the variable I equal to 1. While loop checks the variable, the condition evaluates to true because 1 is less than equal to 5, and we print hello world. Now, if we do not change the value of I in the time we run the loop, how will the condition ever evaluate to false? And hence it will become a loop which will run for infinite number of times. But we do not want this. What we want is that we want the loop to run this statement 5 times. So inside the code block, we write I++. What this does is, this increments the value of I every time we enter the for while loop. Okay, so there is a change in the variable and the condition may evaluate to false sometime. So let's see. I is equal to 1, I is less than 5, as 1 is less than 5. So we print out hello world and we increase the value of I by 1. I++ is equal to I plus 1. Okay. So we increment the value of I. Now the value of I has become 2. Now before entering the block of code for the while loop, we again check the statement. Now is I less than 5? Yes, 2 is less than 5. So the condition evaluates to true again. We print out hello everyone and we again increment the value of I by 1. Now 3, again it evaluates to true. Again we print out. Now we again increment the value of I by 1. 4, now again we print out hello everyone. We increase the value of I by 1. It becomes 5. 5 is equal to 5 and this is the last time that we print hello everyone. Now we increment the value of I and the value of I has now become 6. Now When we check the condition before entering the loop, 6 is neither less nor equal to 5. So the condition evaluates to false. So we do not enter the block of code for the while loop and we exit the loop. So see, the block does not run for infinite number of times. Let's try running this code. See, this is the output that we get using the for loop. 10 times hello world. This was using for loop. Then this is the output that we get using while loop. The same statement, hello everyone, gets printed 5 times. Okay. If we write this I++ outside the block of code, what will happen? The loop will run infinite number of times because there will be no change in the variable. From here, the control goes to here, while loop again. Let me explain it. You have your while loop. Correct? This is how the while loop starts. You write system print out hello. And you put a semicolon. Now you close the block of code without writing I++ and I was equal to 1. And the while loop states that the value of I should be less than or equal to 5. Correct? So, if we do not increment the value of I is equal to 1, we enter the while loop, we print out hello, and we reach this point. Now from this point, it again goes to here to check the condition. Till the condition evaluates to false, it keeps going and again to the same place. So we need to increment the value of I inside this block of code itself. There is no no outcome of I or no benefit if we write or increment the value of I outside the block of code, because we will not be able to reach that line of code ever, because there is no change in the value of I at the time we are checking it. So if we run this, it will show us an error. Maximum buffer. That means it runs maximum number of times possible. Infinite number of times. We must write it here. Okay. Now these were our entry control loops. Now what are the exit control loops? Now see. Let's write the same thing using a do while loop. Now do and while are again two keywords or two reserved words, and that is why they come in red. System.out.println. This is using do while loop. So do while. We again system.out.println. What do we need to output this time? Something different? What? You, all of you must like burger? Let's print out. Burgers are yum. So, why isn't it coming in some color? Because see, there's a spelling mistake. System, double S, no. SYS. Now, after these braces in a do-while loop, we write our condition. While I is less than equal to 5. Now this time we do not need to use the variable I. Let's use some variable j. Because the value of I from coming up is already 6, so it will never evaluate to true. We are writing in the same program, right? And we use the variable I in our while loop. And now the last value of I that we got was 6. 6 was stored in the variable I. As it evaluated to false, then we come to the line number 16. So this time we use another variable and call it as j. Int j equals to 1. Okay, we again initialize an integer variable with the value 1. Now remember, while writing the do while loop, you must put a semicolon after the while statement. There was no need to put a semicolon after the while statement in the while loop. Similarly, there is no need to put a semicolon after the do statement in the do while loop. But yes, while finishing it, the do while loop must have a semicolon. Now let's see what it does. Okay, I guess we need to make this. Let's run it. I don't know why we get this. Let's refresh the page. Public static void main. Circular braces, string S capital, square brackets, ARGS. No semicolon. Another curly braces, another block of code. This means, and we declare a variable int j equals to 1. Put a semicolon. Now we start the do loop. Again a block of code. System.out.println burgers are yum. We again need to increment the value of I j++, inside the block of code itself, while j is less than equal to 5. Okay, and we need to put a semicolon at the end. Let's run this. So see, we got burgers are yum statement printed 5 times on our output screen. So now do you see what is the difference between a while and a do-while loop, or an entry control loop or an exit control loop, I must say. The entry control loops run only if the condition is satisfied, but the exit control loops run at least once before checking the condition. Now, let's initialize j with 5 itself, or let's say with 6 itself. Now 6 is neither less nor equal to 5. So system.out.println must not be printed even once. But let's see what the output will be. The system.out.println statement gets executed at least once. So, as we know that the code is run in a sequential manner, the statements at the top are executed first, and then we come to the statements at the bottom, line by line, I must say. So, do, then we open the braces, then we print out the line, we increment it, and we check the value. So now the value is checked at the end. So we have already executed the block of code at least once till now. See, this is the difference between an entry control loop and an exit control loop. Okay. So this is all about loops in Java. Coming on to our next topic, arrays. Now what is an array? Array is a collection of similar type of data under one name. Now what is so special about arrays? The special thing about arrays is that we can access its different elements directly, and arrays, all the variables inside the arrays are stored next to one another inside the memory of the computer. Yes, this is really fascinating. Let's see. Now, for example, this is the memory of your computer. Okay. Now, you make an array ARR that stores in it integer values. Now an array stores only one data type of values in it. Array can have a number of variables stored inside it, but the data type of all those variables must be the same. So let's say we make an array ARR that stores integer values inside it. Okay, so how do we declare an array in Java? The statement that we need to write to declare an array is int, because we need to store integer data types, integer variable, int square brackets name of the array, as in we give I to the name of the variable, int ARR equals to, now new. New is a reserved keyword in Java, and it is used to declare an object. Int and square brackets again. Now the second square brackets must not be empty. They must contain the size of the array. That is, How many integer variables are we gonna store inside the ARR array? It must be known to us before we declare the array. Okay, because we cannot leave this space empty inside the square brackets. Now we know that we need to store 10 things inside the array. So, see, 10, this is the space that we get, and we divide the space into 10 spaces. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, just drop it off. The extra portion. Okay. Yeah. So 0. Numbering in an array starts from 0. Always remember, it's very important thing in arrays. Numbering always starts from 0 and not from 1. So if we store 10 variables, the numbering shall be from 0 to 9 and not from 1 to 10. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay. The numbering is from 0 to 9 and not from 1 to 10. This is correct. This is totally wrong. Okay. So now we can store values inside it. Let's say, for example, I want to store value of 10 inside it. Then I want to store a value of 13 inside this block. I want to store 15 inside this block. I want to store 20 inside this. I want to store 25 inside this. I want to store 8 inside this. I want to store 14 inside here. I want to store 67 over here. I want to store 45, 54 over here. And I want to store some value 99 over here. So these are all integer values. And we have stored 10 integer values inside an array. Now, what is special about arrays is this memory location is continuous inside the memory of the computer. If we are to number the memory locations, then they will be continuous. This will be, for example, say if it is 100, then this will be 101. This will be 102. So on, this will be 109. Okay. So this is what is special about arrays. Now let's see how do we implement arrays inside a program. First of all, we need to declare an array. How do we declare an array? In square brackets, name of the array, ARR, let's say, is equal to new reserved word int data type and square brackets, and inside that square brackets we need to enter the size of the array, that is, let's say we take it as 10. Now we need to store some values inside that array. How do we do that? We do it using the for loop. Before using a for loop, let's see why do we need to use a for loop. So over here we know that the numbers inside an array are indexed, and the index starts from 0 to the number of elements minus 1. For here we have taken 10 elements, so the index goes from 0 to the number of elements minus 1, that is 10 minus 1, which is equals to 9. Okay. Now, why do we need to use a for loop is, we need to enter a number at a position which is, for example, let's at a 0 index. Okay. So, let's see. Starting from here, let's say we have a pointer that is currently pointing to this space. So this space is what? This spaces are ARR 0th place, correct? And then this space is what? ARR 1. Similarly, what is this space? This is ARR 9. This is how we access each element differently from outside the array. Okay. Now we need to enter elements at a particular place, that is, we need to enter 10 at ARR 0. Then we need to enter 13 at ARR 1, 15 at ARR 2, and so on till ARR 9, where we need to enter 99. So every time the change is just inside the square brackets, that is, the change is in the index number, correct? So we take a for loop which first of all points to the first index of the array. Then once the number is entered in the first time, we increase the index by 1, and now it starts pointing to the second index, correct? Now after entering a number in the first ARR 1, we move to the next place. Our pointer moves to the next place at ARR 2. So this is how our variable, which we first initialized as 0, keeps on increasing, and the pointer thus keeps on moving forward from here to here to here to here and so on. Okay. So we use a for loop in which our variable is the index of the array, and the index always starts from 0. So I is equals to 0. Now we know that the size of the array is 10. So the index goes from 0 to 9. So I must go from I is equal to 0 till I is less than or equal to 9, correct? And what do we need to do each time? We need to just increase the value of I by 1, which is I plus plus. Okay. So let's see how do we do this inside a program. First of all, we declare a variable that can store an integer value I for us. So int I, okay, and our array has already been declared. So we have told the memory that we need 10 continuous spaces, and also we need a variable I to store the index of the array. Now we start our for loop. The keyword for, curly braces. Inside the curly braces, we write our variable I, which is initialized to 0 because the index in an array starts from 0. The size of an array of our array is 10, so the index goes from 0 to 9. So the value of I must be always less than or equal to 9. And what change do we need to bring in I every time the loop is run? We need to increase the value of I by 1. So I plus plus. We close the braces and we start a new curly bracket. Okay. Now, what do we need here? We need to enter values. So let's say that the value stored is always one greater than the index. Okay. So ARR I is equal to I plus 1. Okay. Did you understand the statement? What have we just done? We have stored in the first index a value which is 1 plus the index. So at the first place the index is 0, 1 plus 0 is 1. So we stored a value of 1 inside ARR 0. Similarly, we stored a value of 2 inside ARR 1 because the index number is 1 and 1 plus 1 gives us 2. And so on till ARR 9. In ARR 9, what will be the value? Think about it. At ARR 9, the value will be 10 because our index at ARR 9 is 9 and 1 plus 9 gives us 10. So the value at the 9th index is 10 according to our program. Okay. Of course, we can change the values according to the needs of the program. So we print out system.out.println the array entered is as follows. Again, how do we print out? Now, the only change that we need to bring is in this statement. Instead of inputting the numbers or storing the numbers in the memory, now we need to print the numbers from the memory to the output screen. So again we run a for loop for I is equal to 0 till I is less than equal to 9, I plus plus. Again we start our curly braces, but this time we print out something on the output screen. So we use the statement system.out.println. And what do we need to print out? ARR I. Now see, I have not used curly braces double quotes inside ARRI. Do you know the reason? The reason is that I don't want to print out the exact word ARRI on the output screen, but rather I want to print the value that has been stored inside ARRI. Okay. If we put double quotes, it will get as it is printed out. Okay, let's try to run this code. See, this is the output that we get. We took an array of numbers and stored inside some values and printed those values. So this is the program to input an array and print its values. Now, one more thing that we shall know while programming is comments. Comments are those lines of code which are not executed by the interpreter, which are not checked by the interpreter. Okay, whether these are wrong or right. So how there are two types of comments, single line comments and multiple line comments. Single line comments in Java begin with double backslash. Okay, see how I put double backslash. Now I can write this is a program to input and print numbers from an array. Okay, and how do we make double line and multiple line comments? Backslash star. Now all of this is now a comment. Okay, and how do we end a comment? Next line, star first and the backslash after that. Again, it is not a comment anymore. Okay, so see, we have run, we wrote this line, but because this is a comment, this brings no change to our output. Okay, now let's move on to our next topic, math and string. Now, as we told you that Java is a very user-friendly language. It provides us with various libraries, built-in libraries, what we call them. Now, inside those libraries, they have some functions that have been already built for us to make our work easy. For example, we have 10 numbers and we want to find which number is the greatest of them. So we already have a function defined in the math library named max, which finds out the maximum number. Similarly, we got some functions other than this. These are the list of functions, math library functions and the string library functions. In math library functions, we have sine, cos and tan functions. Now inside these functions, we enter the angle and we get the sine or cos or tan of that angle. Now the angle that we enter must be in radians and not in degrees. Now if we don't know what is the value of an angle in degrees, we have a function 2 degrees in which we can enter the value of an angle in radians and we get the corresponding value of the angle in degrees. This is similar to what you have must have done in maths, that is the unit conversion, you know. How do you change from one unit to another? Just same. Now another function in the math library is the logarithmic function. Now you all must have heard how do we use logarithmic in our maths questions. So log can be to the base e and log can be to the base 10. So these are two different functions, log, and in curly brackets we write out whose number log do we need. And the base by default is e, and if we need the base as 10, we need to write log 10. And the number, for example, if you need it to be 100, so the output would be equal to 2. That is 10 raised to the power 2 is equals to 100. Now, another type of functions are the rounding off functions. Rounding off functions are those in which the floating point number, or what are floating point numbers? Decimal numbers. Decimal numbers get rounded off to the nearest integer numbers according to the normal rounding off rules in maths. Now, if we enter round 1.7, so according to the normal rounding functions in the maths, this gives us an answer of 2 because the nearest integer to the decimal number 1.7 is 2. Now if we use a number floor, if we use a function floor and 1.7 is given as input, the output would be 1. Now what this function does, it rounds off the given function to the nearest integer which is lower than the given number, not greater. And if we give a function, for example, let's say seal, and give it an argument 2.3, so the answer would be 3. Seal, as it's always on the top, and floor, which is always on the bottom. Floor rounds it off to the nearest integer which is lower to the number, and seal always rounds off to the lowest integer which is greater than the number, no matter what the rounding rules say. According to the rounding rules, 2.3 must be rounded off to 2, and 1.7 must always round off to 2. But because we have used seal and floor functions, 1.7 rounds off to 1 and seal rounds off 2.3 to 3. Maximum and minimum functions, what we're just talking, if we enter two numbers, max 12, 67, okay, so it will give us that output as 67. That is, 67 is the greatest of the two numbers. Minimum function, the output for the same arguments, but minimum function would be 12. That is, 12 is smaller of the both. Okay. Now, Sqrt and power functions. Square root, you all know. Square root is what number, when multiplied by itself, gives us the original number. So the square Sqrt is the short form for square root. Sqrt of, for example, 64 would be equals to 8. Okay, and power function takes two arguments. Now, what are arguments? Arguments are the number of variables that we enter inside the circular braces of a function. Okay, number of variables. For example, in max and minimum functions, we have two arguments. In log, round, floor, seal functions, we have one argument. In Sqrt also, we have one argument. In power function, POW, power function of the math library, we have two arguments. Now, what are the two arguments? The number that we need to raise and the power to which the number needs to be raised. So, what will be the value of 2 raised to the power 3 will be the output if we enter something like this, which will again be equals to 8. Okay. Now, let's try these functions in our program. Okay. Now, first of all, we need to import the maths library. How do we do that? Import math. Then we need to write those functions. How do we write those functions? Let's say, for example, int I, int answer, for math library, just take care that we do not need to import the math library. We can, it won't show us an error, but we do not need to. In Java, math library is already included in most of the functions. Okay. Now, let's say we need to print out system. Okay, answer is equal to Now, as we need to tell the compiler that we are using the math library, so we write math capital MATH dot the function name POW for power, the base that is A, and the power that is B. And now we print out what is the answer using the system.out.println statement. And again, we do not want the word answer to be visible on the output screen, but rather we want the value that has been stored inside the answer on the screen. So we do not write answer in double quotes, just like that. Okay, let's try to run this program. Okay, now what does it show is we need to declare these variables as double. Now double is again a data type in Java which stores integer values, but integer values that take larger space in memory than int. That means larger numbers can be stored. Though we need not store larger numbers in our required present program, but while using power function, the answer can be a very large number. Thus, the answer should always be declared as a double variable. Okay. So, this is how we use some of the math functions. We must always write math dot the name of the function. Just remember that. Okay. Now, string library functions. Strings. Now, what are strings? Strings can be a single word, a single alphabet, or a group of words, or a sentence. It can have special characters, it can have numbers inside it, it can have blank spaces, it can have characters. Everything present on the keyboard can be stored inside a string. So, there are cases to convert to lowercase. Now, what does this function do? For example, if you have a word Java, okay, you have a word Java. Now, J is capital and rest all are small letters. Now, we want that the whole word should be in small letters. So, we write Java. No, we store the value of Java in some string. For example, string str is equal to Java, and then we write answer is equal to, again declare variable string answer is equal to str, the name of the variable, dot the name of the function to lower case. Correct? And then system.out.println str. So this would be our code for converting to lowercase. Now what would be the answer? What would the value be stored inside this? It would be Java with J as a small letter. Okay. It won't change if the letters are already in small, but if there is a letter that is in capital letters inside a word, then it gets converted to small letters. Okay, lowercase. Similarly, in uppercase, the answer for the same word Java would be Java. That is, all the lowercase letters would be converted to uppercase and the uppercase would remain as it is. Now trim. What does trim function do? For example, you have a line, 2 spaces, Java is a nice language, and 3 spaces after that, and then a now, and then 3 spaces. Now, if you apply trim function to this string, the answer would be Java is a nice language with no blank spaces at the beginning as well as the end. So the length of the string reduces. Blank spaces are removed from the end and the beginning. To character array. Now, if we give this string to a function character array, then each word becomes an element of an array which stores character variables. Till now, we have read arrays that store integer variables inside it. But arrays can also be of the string data type or character data type that store characters or strings inside them. Now, a single word is a string itself, so if we declare a string array, how do we do that? String, data type, brackets, name of the array str is equal to new reserved keyword string, and we must tell the size of the array for, let's say, 10. Okay, that means 10 words would be stored inside the str array. Now, let's say str1 is equal to Java is a nice language. So, if we do str1 dot to char array, so the answer would be Java is a nice language. Okay. Now you see, in Java, a string is always written inside single or double quotes. It is never written just like that. Okay. Now split function, length function. What does length function do? Length function returns us the length of the array. For example, this is our array. So what will be its length? Java, that is 4, then a white space 5, then is 2, 7, then a blank space again 8, then a 1 character 9, then a blank space 11, then nice is a 4 letter word, so 11 plus 4 15, then a blank space 16, then language is a 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 letter word, so 16 plus 8, 16 plus 8 gives us 24. So the length of str1 would become 24 and it would return us an integer number. Obviously, length will be an integer, Then split. What does split does? Split divides the character into several other characters. Okay. Then equals it compares two strings. For example, Java is one string and Java with a capital J is another string. So it compares whether the two strings are equal or not. Now it returns true if the two strings are equal and returns false if the two strings are not equal. That is, it returns in a Boolean data type. Remember, Boolean data type that has two variables, either true or false. Yeah. So now Java with a small j and Java with a capital J are not equal to each other because Java is a case sensitive language. That is, it treats lowercase and uppercase differently. Okay, you got my point. So these are the library functions in the string library that you can use. These were some of the math library functions. These are some of the string library functions. Now, these are not all the functions inside the string and math library, but Yes, these are the most useful ones that we require in our daily programs. Okay. There are many more that you can explore with time. But yes, if you know these, most of your work will get done. Now, moving on to our next topic, that is let's do some practice questions. Now, these are some practice questions that you can definitely try. You must try them because in coding, practice is a must. And after you try these questions by yourself, I'm sure that you will take a leap in Java. You will understand Java in a much, much better way. You must try these questions. Swap the first and last elements of the array. Now, what logic do we need to apply in this? Anyone? The logic that needs to be applied here is that we are playing with the index values of the numbers stored inside the array. In an array, it is always a game of indexes. It's never about the value stored inside it. Okay, it is sometimes that the value stored inside it, but not always. And most of the times we care about is at what index are we referring to right now. So, just swap the first and last index, that is arr I becomes equals to C. Now you store the first element in a third variable. Put the value of the last variable in the array in the first one, and now in the last we put the value of the third variable. So this is how you swap. Got some idea? For example, this is an array. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now here we have stored 1 and here we have stored 5. Now we want 5 to be stored here and 1 to be stored here. So this is ARR 0. I told you index always starts from 0 inside the array. And then the last index would be length minus 1, that is 5 minus 1, that is 4. So this would be ARR 4. Okay, now let's store that our index is 0 and ARR 0 is equals to 1. You got that? Index is 0, but ARR 0 means the value at index 0 in the array ARR. So ARR 0 is 1 and 0 is our index. So let's store the value inside ARR 0 in the third variable. Let the third variable be C, any integer variable. C is equal to ARR 0. Okay. Now ARR 4 ARR 0 is equals to ARR 4 and ARR 4 equals to C. This is C, sorry. Okay. Now, on the left hand side, we always write the variable in which we are putting some value, and on the right hand side comes the variable from which we are putting the value. Okay. Always remember, we cannot write ARR 0 equals to C because there is no value stored inside C and there is already some value that has been stored inside ARR 0. Okay, so this is the logic behind the first practice question. Similarly, For the second practice question, store the first 10 even numbers. You need to check that whether it's an even number or not. How do we check that? That if it divides by 2 and gives us a remainder of 0, it's an even number. Otherwise, it's not. Now, prime number. What is the logic behind a prime number? That its only divisor is 1 and the number itself. So, the moment we start a for loop and divide it with every number till we reach the number itself. Okay. And if at any moment we get a remainder of 0, then we come out of the loop using the break statement and print that the number is not prime. And if we are not able to find any number that gives us a remainder of 0, then we write that the number is a prime number. So these are all some simple questions that you can practice. Now, a menu-driven program. Menu-driven program would be by using a menu. That is, you print on your screen menu. We did that. You must remember menu. And then write first point as addition. Now you can, in place of addition, put a plus sign. In second, you can put a minus sign. In third, you can put a multiply sign. And in fourth, you can put the divide sign. Okay. And then, as the user chooses its input, which operation does he want to perform, you using the switch statement, case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4, and the default case, a plus b, a minus b, a into b, a divided by b, do the following operation. Now, how do you find the second largest number? A and b. If a is greater than b and a is also greater than c, then a is the largest number. Okay, instead of 10, just make it 3. Okay. Find the second largest number from 3 numbers. Okay. Instead of 10, just make it 3. Store 3 variables, a, b, and c, and find the second largest number from those 3. Now, find whether a right angle triangle can be formed with the lengths 11, 12, and 5. Now, what is the logic behind this program? What do we need to check? We know that in a right angle triangle, Pythagoras theorem is always followed. That is, the length of the largest side is the hypotenuse, and the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the square of the other two sides. That is the addition of the other two sides. Sorry. So, as we can see that 12 is the largest number. So, 12 square must be equal to 11 square plus 5 square. Correct? Or 11 square minus 5 square. What should it be? Into your maths book. Great. So, now how do you print the following pattern? Instead of writing system.out.println and some variable, just write system.out.println and because you want to print star, just put the variable star in double quotes. Okay, because we want to print star as it is. And then semicolon always. Okay, use a for loop and an if statement inside the for loop. Now, how do you reverse a string? Now, there is a built-in function in the string class for this. Look for that and use that function to reverse the string. Okay. Now, let's come to our topic. Next topic. That is classes. Now, what are classes inside a Java program? Let's see. You see, we always start our program with a class whose name is run. Now, class is just like array, but inside the array we store values that have the same data type. But inside the class we store values of different data types. For example, we want to store the data of a student. Now, the data of a student can be, what all things do we need to store for a data of a student? For example, we name a class student, and we want to store the name. Now, name will be of string data type because neither is it an integer value nor it is a single variable, single character. So, string name. Now we want to store the roll number. Now roll number will be an integer value, so its data type will be int roll number, semicolon. Now we want to store the age. Now age will again be an integer, so int age. Now we want to store the gender. Now gender can be either a character, that is, it depends on you. You want to take it as F and M, or you want to take the complete name, that is female or male. If you want to take F and M, then declare it as a character because it's a single alphabet. And if you want to take it as a whole name, that is male or female, then take it as a string. So here we take it as character, gender. Okay. Now, classes have a very special property, that is, it can have functions inside them. Functions are also known as methods in Java. Now, functions or methods are a block of code that are defined to perform a specific task, and once the method has been written, it can be called from anywhere in a program, and the block of code does not need to be written again. So, it makes our code short and efficient. Now, let's declare a function which prints all these values. For example, we name the function. Now, how do we declare a function? First of all, we need to write the data type that the function returns. If the function does not return anything, then it is taken as void. Void, name of the function print, and what all information does the function need from outside to execute the function properly. In print, we do not need anything from outside. Now, let's clear all this. Let us make it a little easier for you. We want to make a function to add two numbers. Okay. Now, how do we do that? Let us say that it will return us the answer. So, the answer of the addition of two integers will always be an integer. So the return type will be integer. That is, the function will return us the answer which will be of integer type. So int, name of the function sum, and it will need two variables that we need to add. Now again, the data type of these two variables will be int, and the name will be a and b. Int a, comma int b. Now, these are known as parameters to a function. That is, what external information are we providing to the function. Int a and b. Now, we declare a variable int answer equals to 0, answer equals to a plus b, semicolon, and we return answer. Now, return is a special keyword. That's why it is coming in red. Okay. So inside a function, we declared a variable of integer type that stores the sum of the two numbers that we got from outside, and then it returns the variable that we just created. Okay. See, here also it's int and here also it's int. That is, we are talking about the data type of the variable answer in both the places. Now class run, curly braces, public static void main string square brackets args, then again curly braces. Then we declare two variables int a, comma b. Then we store values inside a and b. A is equal to 5, b is, let's say, equals to 10. Now what do? Now we call the function. How do we call the function? From the main class. Now this is our main class and this is our function. Now when we call the function inside the main class, the program control from the main class goes to the function. Whatever is written inside the function is performed, and we get back that has been returned from the function. Now, because we are getting an integer from the function, we need to store that function inside an integer variable. So int sum equals to sum a, comma b. Okay. Int s. Now the name of the function and the name of the variable cannot be same, and the name of our function is sum. So I have taken it as s equals to sum, which is the name of the function that we need to call. And what external information do we need to give? We need to give the values of a and b so that the numbers can be added inside the function. And then we print out. What do we print out? System dot out dot println. We print out s, because the answer that is returned from the function gets stored in the variable s inside the main class, and inside the main class we are writing this print statement. So we now running this program will give us an error. Let's see what is the output when we run this program. See, we got 4 errors. 4 errors. Do you know why we got these errors? Because in Java, we cannot declare or define functions outside a class. The definition of any function must always be inside some class in Java. Now, what is a class? As we have just studied, class is a collection of variables of different data types under one name. We declare an object of Java, and then through that object we call the functions that are declared inside the class. These three lines are very important. I shall repeat. Class is a collection of variables of different data types. Functions must always be defined inside the class. We declare the object of a class and access those functions through those objects. Okay? Now, to write the same program, that is, to add two numbers with the use of functions, there need to be some changes in the program. Let's see how we can write the program. Just look at this program, understand it, and then try to write it yourself. First of all, let's declare a class sum. Class sum, S capital. Okay. Now, the class does not take any parameters. The functions do. Okay. And now let's have two variables inside the class, int a and int b. Now this time the data type of both of these variables is the same, but it can be different also. Now we need to make a function that adds the two numbers. And also we need the third variable that returns the answer. So int answer. Now we declare a function addition. Now that function will return a value. So it will be of int type, that because the value it returns will be of int data type, int addition, and it requires some external information, that is the value of a and b, but because a and b are the variables defined under the same class, we need not write them inside those braces. Okay, inside those curly braces. Now answer is equal to a plus b and return answer. Now we have written our class. Now we write our main class, that is run public static void main. Now see, we do not need to write this statement public static void main in the class sum, because the function of this class is not as the same as the function of the main class. The main class is the class where the main function has been defined, from where the control of the program is managed. Okay, now we take an object of the class sum. How do we do that? We need to declare a new object. How do we do that? Now sum is altogether a different data type. Okay, just as array is a new data type, similarly sum is also a new data type. So how do we declare a variable of a new data type? Sum, the name of the data type, sum, then the name of the variable, let's say s1, equals to new, because we want a new variable, so we use the keyword new, and again the sum of name of the class sum and circular braces semicolon. Now s1 dot addition. This is how we call a function through an object. How do we do that? Name of the object then the dot operator and the name of the function, and then circular braces and a semicolon. Now it is returning some value. Now that value needs to be stored in some integer variable. So int s1 dot answer is equal to now the s1 object has three parts. Let me just show you. Yes. Sorry. Yeah. See, S1 is an object. It has three parts, A, B, and C. That is A, B, and the answer. Okay. Now, if we want only the A part out of S1, how do we reach to that? S1, the dot operator, and A. This will give us only the value of A variable for the object S1. Okay. Now, if we want the value of B variable for the object S1, we will write it as S1 dot B. Similarly, if we want the value of the answer variable, we will write it as S1 dot answer. So this is how we access the different variables inside the class from its object. So we just saw how we can access functions and how we can access the different variables through an object that have been defined inside the class through the object of the class. This is something really important. We always access those with the help of the dot operator. We write the name of the object before the dot operator and the thing that we want to access after the dot operator. If it's a function, we need to put circular braces, and if it's a variable, we don't need to put them. Now, coming back to our code, we want to print system.out.println s1.answer. We don't want to print s1.answer, we want the value under s1.answer to be printed. So see, s1 was the object name and addition was the name of the function, and we use the dot operator between them, and as it's the name of the function, we put circular braces. S1 is again the name of the object, answer is the name of the variable, and we accessed this answer variable through the object of the class sum by writing s1.sum. Let's try to run this. Okay. It may take some time to process. Never mind. So I hope you've all understood how to declare a class, how to declare an object of that class, how to define a function inside that class, and how to access the function and the variables inside that class from outside the class with the help of the object of the class. So this is how we use methods and classes in Java. Now we can have classes for some very common purposes. For example, a very real time example is in a school, we need to store the data of hundreds of students, and the data may have a variety of things. For example, name, gender, age, class, section, marks, and these all must be stored under different data types because they have different values, and thus comes the use of class. Okay, so classes are very, very important in Java. They are the essence of a programming language. Okay, we just saw in our previous example how to declare the class for a student. We just saw how to declare a class to make some arithmetic functions. Now, so children, in this 3-hour video, we covered some very basic concepts of Java. So as to what are variables, how to take input using the scanner library, how to go through loops, conditional statements, if, else if, two types of loops, exit control loops and entry control loops, for loop, while loop, and the do while loop. Then we learned about switch statement. Then we learned about arrays, some built-in libraries, the math and the string libraries. Now there are many more built-in libraries in Java. These two are the most basic ones. Then we did some practice questions, learned the logic of a few. Then we came to the topic of classes and methods. Now, these all topics are the basics of Java. There is much more in Java, but still you can do wonders with them. You also have this online software which is totally free of cost. You can use this to practice anytime, anywhere, at your own convenience. Now, practice is a must in any programming language. A programming language is basically two things: syntax and logic. When you combine these two, you can do wonders, children. Trust me. A few questions with practice, that you do them yourself. Don't copy from net. Take the help of books, take the help of tutorials, learn to this syntax, listen to this video again and again. It will solve mostly all your doubts. And don't worry, we are always with you. Okay? So, meet you in the next lecture. I hope this video helps you and you proceed ahead. Thank you.